Man, so Russia right now is getting absolutely fucked. And so, what I mean by this is, first of all, obviously, they're really doing a horrible job on the Ukraine front. They should have really been able to take over Kiev at least a long time ago, but that has failed because of the very strong Ukrainian resistance, tethered also combined with all of the aid that's coming from the United States, not only the US, but EU powers sending in a bunch of military equipment. I'm honestly curious to know what the military equipment of Russia even is. Like, are they still using like Soviet era tanks? I mean, I've seen some videos of like the insides of the tanks and it looks absolutely disgusting. But, I don't know for sure if they have shitty equipment, if that's also one of the reasons. But there are obviously some logistical issues, but this video is not about that. This is about the sanctions that are being implemented. Now, this actually just came out like 10 hours ago or something. It says Putin says Western sanctions are akin to declaration of war. And so it said President Vladimir Putin said on Saturday that Western sanctions on Russia were akin to a declaration of war and warned that any attempt to impose a no-fly zone in Ukraine would lead to catastrophic consequences for the world. A no-fly zone is not going to happen in Ukraine, obviously. Again, more Russian disinformation once again. NATO already came out and said we are not imposing a no-fly zone because that would be literal, schizophrenic lunacy to do that. It'd be completely insane. But he says these sanctions that are being imposed are akin to a declaration of war, but thank God it has not come to that, Putin said, speaking to a group of flight attendants at an Aeroflot training center near Moscow. So if he's out here saying that the Western sanctions are akin to a declaration of war, it means that these sanctions are very serious, because otherwise he would have just dismissed them as not being that serious and just futile attempts by the West to stop him. But he's saying it's akin to a declaration of war because these level of we're like witnessing world history here, because this level of world sanctions on one singular nation, I don't think has ever been seen before in history. And so the sanctions after the Crimea situation in 2014 did actually hurt the Russian economy. The ruble, I believe, went down from about 30 rubles for $1 all the way down to like 60 rubles for $1. So that's a half drop. That's a lot of currency valuation to lose. So it was definitely impacted, but I guess they were able to just keep pushing through the mind belief of God Daddy Putin, essentially. I guess that's what they run on. But it's just been crazy to see what's been going on. So obviously the US has been sanctioning and stuff, and we'll get into that. But I know 99% of you don't really know what sanctions are. So sanctions are an economic penalty that's issued by a government. And so there are different kinds of sanctions that you can run, and they've been kind of doing multiple sanctions, right? So the first level sanctions are going after the Russian oligarchs who have all these super yachts in different countries, or they have a bunch of money stashed in bank accounts or own real estate in other countries. And so what is a sanction? So it's an economic penalty, but when you're talking about targeting rich people, essentially what you're saying is a government of a country, let's say Germany, for example, they have a law essentially saying in their country that we are now sanctioning this country, this person, this Russian oligarch, and they're telling the bank in Germany saying if you allow them to take the money out or to grab their asset or whatever deed they have, we're going to prosecute you under federal law. So that's what the United States does. So it's like, for example, like I think Iran owned like, I don't know how much money, like a million or something more, maybe 10 million. I forgot what it was of like New York skyscrapers or something like that. And so they lose that because the United States government tells the bank, like, if you allow them to hold this, we're going to actually prosecute you. And if they have literal cash in a bank account, and the bank allows them to withdraw that money, they will be prosecuted under the law. So that's how you're able to cancel it. You tell the bank, cancel the deed. This deed is no longer accepted. Iranian government cannot own this skyscraper. So that's how you attack. But there are different kinds of sanctions. Obviously, we're seeing with like SWIFT, the worldwide payment system. That's absolutely huge. I follow this Russian YouTuber, Roman NFKRZ. I'm sure a lot of you guys know him. But he's saying that basically his entire income is going to be completely gone from the SWIFT cancellation. So these are huge. So these are sanctions that are going to impact Russians as a whole as well. But as you can see, like Microsoft, Apple, Nike, Toyota, Honda, Volkswagen. Like these are like some huge countries, and so it says Microsoft also said they'd help protect Ukraine's cybersecurity against Russia's attacks. And so if like Microsoft and their 365 online program is just going gone, that's going to impact entire businesses. And so essentially you're having a country going back into the Stone Age, and the people just have to run on, I guess, praise and adulation of their great leader, Putin. And so that's essentially what they're doing. They're essentially going back to, I don't even know, it's just 19th century times or 20th century times. It is not looking good for Russia. But here's actually what's really interesting. So obviously the sanctions, that cancels out a lot of Russia's currency valuation because a bunch of companies are pulling out. So that's all investments going out, jobs being lost, et cetera, et cetera. The stock market starts to plunge. So the currency starts to lose its value. But Russia actually had a plan for this. And so after that 2014 situation, they were preparing for this whole time. Their preparation was to have the Russian central bank actually stash a bunch of foreign currency, and so that you could maintain the value of the ruble by supplying banks with foreign currency, which would allow the ruble to maintain its value while there are bank runs going on, where, as you can see, the videos of Russians are rushing. No pun intended, Russians are rushing to the banks, and they're trying to get their money out, right? We've seen these bank runs, remember Great Depression times? You go to the bank to get your money out quickly in dollars because the ruble is dog water. And so if your dollars that you have or any foreign currency that you have has to be converted to rubles, you're losing a lot of value, right? That $1 you're getting into rubles that continuously goes down, you're losing money. So they're rushing, and they don't have any dollars to give out. And so the idea was Russia can give them dollars that'll calm everything down, keep the ruble's value up. But the problem is the United States actually imposed sanctions on Russia central bank to attack that plan. And so it says, the United States on Monday imposed sanctions on Russia's central bank and other sources of wealth, dealing a crushing blow to the country's economy and further punishing Moscow over its invasion of Ukraine. The measures block Americans from engaging in any transactions involving Russia's central bank, finance ministry, or national wealth fund, are likely to push Russia's inflation higher, cripple its purchasing power, and drive down investments, U.S. officials said on Monday as the new measures took effect. The actions included a carve-out for energy payments. So essentially what this is doing is it's preventing the Russian central bank from accessing any of that foreign currency. It's said that they have like a $600 billion stash in foreign currency. I don't know how much of that is U.S. currency. But the thing is, here's the thing, right? I don't think it's like literal liquid hard cash that they have. I don't think they have 400 billion or 600 billion of literal currency in hand, right? They don't have it just stashed in the closet. I think what they have is they purchase U.S. debt. Okay, so you buy U.S. debt, and then you can sell it off, right? You could sell it off and get the money back. I think that's the idea. But by slapping the sanction on the Russian central bank, by basically saying, hey, transactions with the Russian central bank are not allowed by U.S. individuals, otherwise we'll prosecute you through the law, right? That's the sanction. I think that makes it so that they can't sell any of that debt. And so it just essentially makes the debt of the U.S. or any other country that they own null, because there's no one to sell the debt to. They can't sell the debt off to make the money, right? Which is their idea. You could sell the debt, get the USD, start funneling that into Russian banks. That'll calm down the bank run. It'll keep the ruble at higher value. But that has been hit now too. So Russia's grand plan to attack and counter the sanctions is not going to work, because they have now they sanctioned the response to the sanctions. How funny is that, right? So yeah, they basically got dicked down. That shit ain't gonna work because the U.S. has made it illegal for U.S. individuals to purchase that debt from Russia. that Russia owns of the United States or any other country. And so they can't get that stash of foreign currency that they need to maintain the value of the ruble. And so, banks don't have any foreign currency. The ruble just continues to collapse, especially as the bank runs happen more and more and people are trying to pull their money out. Obviously, the value of your currency is going to continue to go down. Again, like I said, think of the Great Depression, bank runs, and all that stuff. And so it's complete chaos in Russia. Russia is essentially completely fucked right now. Like, it's hard to explain just how much damage these sanctions have done to Russia. It really, truly is crazy how much damage has been done to Russia. And I think that, whatever sanctions they saw in 2014, I think a combination of, insanity, but also thought that, hey, we made it through then, we can make it through now. I really don't think that Russians are going to be willing to put up with this. Now, the propaganda seems to make them not really think about it and things like that, or be able to get over it somehow. But the truth is, I really just don't believe that Russians will stand for this for much longer, because after being cut off from SWIFT, the ruble is collapsing. They can't even access their foreign currency. They're going to be forced to convert their foreign currency into rubles. So it's just like entire networks are being wiped away essentially with the snap of a finger. So it's crazy. And if you can't buy Microsoft products, Apple products, Nike products, Toyota, Honda, Volkswagen, those are the big main brands of the 21st century. So it's just you're going backwards. It's crazy. And so I don't think anybody's ever seen this level of just literal world sanctioning on one singular country. So it's pretty crazy to see. But wow, I mean, this is really, really crazy. I don't know what it is, if it's 122 rubles is a dollar or something like that now, but it's complete garbage. The ruble is completely worthless, and Russians are really, really going to be hurt from these economic sanctions. It's just really crazy to see. And here's the thing: every day there's a new company, because it's such a moral situation that it's actually bled into, I think, partially economic as well, if not mostly economic, right? Because the PR of saying you're not selling in Russia is probably going to benefit you more than continuing to sell in Russia, and so that can be a really big PR bomb. And so, I think companies are lining up right now. So Russians are the ones who are really going to be hurt by this. And so hopefully this situation ceases. Russia ceases their attack and their invasion on Ukraine.